I'm Mira Rubin here with you on Enlightened World Network, and today's topic is the rhythms of life and how when we tune in, we can join in the dance of life based on the rhythm that it provides us. And that dancing and that attunement allows us to expand more fully into our highest expression. So it should be a fun conversation. But before we get started, let's take a minute or two to get present. Let's take a deep breath in through your nose and hold it. And imagine clean, crisp oxygen flooding your lungs, flowing into your bloodstream, nourishing all your cells, all your molecules, all your electrons, creating a brilliant beam of light and energy from your heart out into the world. And as you exhale, exhale any tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's take another deep breath in through your nose and hold it. This time, imagine life-affirming energy moving through your body, through your being, through your bones and your skin and your cells, and nourishing and revitalizing every part of your body and being. And as you exhale, exhale any remaining tension, stress, negativity, fatigue. And now let's press our palms together, vigorously rub your hands together to feel the friction, the temperature, the pressure, the motion, the tickling and tingling when you stop, and allow all those sensations to bring you present right here, right now, into this remarkable physical form that enables us to experience life. Welcome, welcome, welcome. So, the rhythms of life. I think we might be familiar with terms like harmony of the spheres, the rhythm of life, the cosmic heartbeat. What we're talking about today is allowing ourselves to find a place of quiet and presence and stillness enough so that we can actually tune into those rhythms. And it may be something that we get an auditory sense of, actually, or it may more likely be something that is a felt rhythm, a felt sense of connection, of presence, of ebb and flow, of rising and falling energies, of a sense of gentle movement, like the swaying of limbs of trees in the wind. And when we can allow ourselves to connect to these natural rhythms, again, they may be felt, they may be heard, without really sound necessarily, that what we're doing is we're tuning into our own rhythms and allowing those rhythms to entrain to the rhythms of the universe, our surrounding field, shall we say. So the surrounding field, if we talk about energy and we talk about the environment, we are all the time sensing information. I'm saying sensing information because it doesn't necessarily go through our intellectual process to be gleaning this kind of awareness. Good morning, Rosalind. Welcome. So good to have you here, and so good to have everybody else who's joining us. It's great to be convening with you today. So we're talking about the rhythms of the universe, and tuning into the senses that we don't necessarily acknowledge or recognize or even experience in a conscious way. I was having a conversation with someone about the five senses, the limits of the five senses. And I think the truth is that we have way more than five senses, that we sense all kinds of things all the time. We just haven't segregated those experiences or those sensing awarenesses or codified them, so we don't recognize that they exist. But if you think about, for instance, with the tsunami, the animals knew. The animals knew before the tsunami happened. And a lot of them went to high places to escape the water. But the humans, we have been taught from an early age to ignore lots of our sensory experiences. So I don't know if you had the experience, but I certainly did when I was a kid and I was told, oh, that's just your imagination, or you're too sensitive, or any other, a whole litany of kinds of conversations along that line. And I think what happens is that we get trained out of our awareness. So as kids haven't been taught to filter in the way that we deem culturally acceptable. So they have imaginary in big quotes, imaginary friends. We don't know what the nature of those imaginary friends really might be. They see things that we don't necessarily see after having been enculturated. So we tell them that, oh, that's not there. It's just your imagination. Just your imagination, like imagination is somehow less than anyway. And so what happens, I think, is that we tune out a lot of our sensory experience and we override it. Like if we're really agitated, it may be that we're picking up some kind of information. You know, we're acting as a receiver and a transmitter of information all the time. And I think that we're enculturated in such a way that we don't even recognize those things. So it takes a deliberate effort to be cultivating those senses that we might be considering to be metaphysical simply because we don't collectively recognize their existence. So when we're talking about the rhythms of life, we can look that this isn't some kind of ethereal construct. We can look at the cycles of seasons, and that is deeply one of the most overt indicators of one of the rhythms of life, or a multitude of the rhythms of life. And in the spring, the energy we feel, the sense of renewal, the revitalization that arises is part of the rhythm of life. It's life coming into a vibrant, verdant expression. And typically we are energized along with that. We are also experiencing that sense of renewal. There's more light, there's more life, there's the blossoming of trees and plants, there's the birthing of animals, there's this incredible explosion of energy that happens with each spring. And in the winter, we notice the contraction and the less light and the more sleep, or the more internal we become. And so these are the kinds of rhythms that I'm speaking of. And for those folks who are tuned into astrology, they probably are able to recognize all kinds of other rhythms and patterns of nature and of life that we transit through as the universal forces move around. And the thing is that we can tune into these things, and we can, as we tune in, we can become greater aligned with these things. We can become an expression of that rhythm as we allow ourselves to flow with those impulses, with those energies of the seasonal changes. Or so much of our lives are dictated by schedules and work and demands that we're often just pretty oblivious to the felt rhythms that are impacting us all the time. So for instance, just the felt energy of spring, some of us feel much lighter of heart, as the sun is coming out, as we're getting more vitamin D, there's physiological things that are happening, and seeing all the vibrance. And the thing is that I would venture to say that likelihood is that not only do we see this, but we feel it. But we typically don't identify it. We typically don't give it formal recognition, even though it's an influence upon us. So for instance, even the eclipse, many people felt an impact of it. And it's possible that many people felt an impact of that transition, that transit, that moment, that event, but don't identify it, don't recognize it as such, just sort of see it as business as usual. The thing that's so interesting about us as humans is how so many of us have been enculturated to be very separate from nature, from not recognizing that we are nature also, that we are animals, that we have drives, that we have instincts, that we have reactions to natural events. And we get very tied up in our heads and our intellectual experience and our day-to-day demands that we make so very important, that we kind of isolate ourselves intellectually, emotionally, experientially from the flow of the natural world. And I think that there's a vast wealth of wisdom and experience that we can tap into when we allow ourselves to sink into presence, to really connect, to listen to the movements of the wind, to listen to the songs of the birds, to notice the patterns of flight, to be able to become aware of the insects that are moving around and conducting all this business, so to speak. So when we talk about being grounded, what does that mean? I'm gonna suggest that perhaps it means that we're connected, right? There's a grounding wire that we talk about with electricity. And when we're grounded, we're connected to something. And I wonder, as we explore this, let's look at what is it that we're talking about when we're talking about grounded. What are we grounded to? And what's different about the experience of being grounded? That experience of connection is when we're not shutting out all of the world, but we're connecting, I believe, perhaps deeply to the ebbs and flows within us. We're connecting to our quiet self, and in connecting with our quiet self, we experience being more deeply connected to our greater self, our greater existence within an infinite and infinitely transforming system. So if we can imagine that we are our own organism, and when we're feeling grounded, we're in alignment with ourselves. And then as we become in alignment with ourselves, it allows us to attune more effectively to our surroundings from that state of presence. So Rosalind says, can being grounded be measured with an instrument in an electrical supply? What are we using to measure internally? It's a great question. What are we using to measure internally? Because again, we're talking about senses. And I think we get a sense of solidity, of structure, or it's so funny. I just want to keep going back to the word grounded. But you asked if there are instruments that can measure electrically our groundedness. We do have all kinds of instruments that allow us to monitor heart rate, for example, or blood pressure, or oxygenation. And we also have devices that can measure brainwave activity. And different brainwave activity is associated with different emotional states as well, or states of calm or agitation, more or less mental activity. And so, yes, I believe we can actually get measures. And we have all these wonderful tools now, the rings that you can wear, or the device, all different devices that monitor all kinds of physiological states. And I would venture to guess that there are certain measures that vividly reflect how grounded and connected we are. Even breath rate, we can notice that when we're in a more grounded state, typically our natural breath is slower and deeper. And so knowing those things, knowing that breath is really a key to allowing ourselves to be grounded. When we think about breath, I think about the line from the Joni Mitchell song, we are stardust, we are golden, we are billion-year-old carbon. I think it's billion, she says in the song. And when we're breathing in and we're breathing out, we're breathing the same oxygen that the dinosaurs breathed. You know, we're breathing the same air that has stardust literally in it. And so through our breath, if we use our breath to quiet ourselves, we are also using our breath to connect to the universe. And if we can put our attention on the power of that breath alone for connection, we can open up a universe of new possibilities, right? If this idea, we give a lot of lip service to, that we're all one, that we're not separate, that we're all connected. And it's just occurring to me, imagining each of us breathing and breathing the air that has been circulating for eons, that each of us breathing is literally affirming with every breath that we are inseparably connected. That whatever this air is that we breathe, whatever this air is that is the very foundation of our life, is we're breathing in in a way, it's information. We're breathing in these particles from all time in every moment, and we're breathing out our own expressions as well. And so even just allowing for the concept of that connection as we breathe can potentially help us tune into those deep, deep, deep rhythms that are part of the universal cosmic orchestration, shall we say. You know, it's funny, I've always heard, excuse me, how powerful the breath is in spiritual practice, in calming ourselves, in presencing ourselves. And when we recognize that we're all breathing, the trees are also utilizing the same air, contributing oxygen. The plants are all interacting with this same environment that we are embodying. We're inhaling, embodying, exhaling. And from that vantage point, the connection that we all have to one another is undeniable. It's quite physical and quite real. And it shifts, at least thinking about it in that way, it shifts my experience. I'm wondering if it shifts yours as you recognize that we are unified by our breath across the continents, throughout this world, and even into the cosmos, because there's this constant exchange of gases, of particles, of energy. And so while it might sound like an a nice idea to be talking about our interconnectedness, the breath itself points to that it's not conceptual, that it's actual, our connectedness. And I offer that as a takeaway this morning, that as we connect to our connectedness, we can also connect to the rhythms of that deeply, deeply connected community of being, this one big organism that's all connected through the breath. Dido says, I love knowing that I'm breathing the air of dinosaurs. Yeah, it's pretty cool, right? Pretty cool. And all the people that have ever inhabited this planet, all the creatures that have ever inhabited this planet and beyond, because there's an interchange of particles and gases from throughout the cosmos. So when we talk about being stardust, it's really, truly true. What a way to start the day. So with that, I'm Mira Rubin. This is the Core Connection, and I go live here each weekday morning at 9 a.m. Eastern on the Enlightened World Network Facebook page and YouTube channel. And I invite you to please like and share the Facebook and YouTube channel for me and Enlightened World Network, and the links are in the chat. As always, it's such a privilege, such a pleasure, and an honor to be able to have the opportunity to share these morning musings together. So until next time, so much love to you.